Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 432, Green Guardian. The episode begins in a large burning forest, with a large group of wild Pokemon trapped, some cowering in fear, and some trying to fend off against the blazing flames. Unfortunately, no matter what any of these Pokemon did, it seemed nothing could be done to stop the flames. Even the combined efforts of all the Pokemon, Caterpie, Butterfree, Weedle, Kakuna, Beedrill, Pidgey, Rattata, Nidoran, the other gender Nidoran, Venonat, Oddish, Kangaskhan, Sandler, Diglett, Dugtrio, Execute. They all couldn't stop the burning of the fire as it extended further down into the forest, threatening to engulf the whole area. That was until a lone mythical Pokemon known as Celebi was flying in the sky and noticed the fire. And as it saw that a group of Pokemon were in danger, Celebi instantly felt required to take action because Celebi's job was to protect forests. And its body started to glow as it flies through the forest, and it generated huge thorny vines which wrapped around the burning trees to trap the flames. And eventually, after some time, the vines do their work and the fire was put out, and as a result, the smoke from the fire diminishes. The flashing light from Celebi's powers that all the Pokemon had saw then disappeared when the fire had disappeared, and Celebi used a lot of its power to remove the vines from the forest so that the remainder of it could rebuild in peace. Although Celebi stressed that the forest wouldn't rebuild because it was pretty damaged, despite Celebi managing to save it, because Celebi had got to the forest pretty late into the burning. Celebi was exhausted as fuck, but it had enough energy to escape a falling burning tree, because the tree was still burning a little bit. It was the one thing that was still kind of on fire, but anyways, the tree was falling on Celebi, and it managed to use the last of its powers to teleport away. And it eventually appeared somewhere else, far, far away from the falling tree. From all the wild Pokemon's perspective, Celebi had just disappeared into thin air, and they wondered where it went. Anyways, as for where Celebi went, it had time traveling abilities, so it managed to the same forest it was just at, but far in the future. And Celebi was relieved to see that the forest was indeed fully saved and was able to recover. However, the strain from saving the whole forest and using so much of its power sent Celebi falling down to the muddy ground. Celebi knew it needed rest, and it was going to rest, although it then started to rain, so Celebi managed to summon a huge group of thorny vines all around it to protect it against the rain and anyone that may try to hurt it while it was already hurt and trying to get some rest. Sometime in the morning, the next day, after this whole Celebi incident, Ash and the gang were walking along a path towards Ash's next destination, the Battle Pike. Everyone was quite energetic today, with Brock having enough energy to read through a guidebook, Max having enough energy to look at his Pokénav, Ash having enough energy to daydream about participating in the Battle Pike, and me having enough energy to look after her egg. While Max was checking his Pokénav, he found out that they would soon be coming across the famous cycling road in Kanto, which Ash remembered from all the way back in episode 36 of the anime. Damn, almost exactly 400 episodes ago. Brock saw the cycling road in his guidebook as well, and read up on some information on it, such as how there was a bike rental shop right by the road, so people who didn't have bikes could travel on it. So May suggested that they should buy some bikes, since going cycling could be fun, and Brock agreed, suggesting they should make it there. Ash allowed this, since the cycling road was on the way to the Battle Pike. Ash didn't really give a fuck about going on the cycling road, because he was just excited about getting his next frontier symbol at the Battle Pike, and he daydreamed about this, clenching his fist in excitement. But anyways, after some time walking, Ash and the gang eventually arrived at what appeared to be cycling road, but with several large signs that were blocking the road that said closed, and several banners stopping Ash and the gang from accessing cycling road. And there was also an Officer Jenny guarding the road, preventing anyone from entering too. Brock instantly fell in love with Officer Jenny, but before he could go flirt with her, Max cut him off and questioned Officer Jenny why the cycling road was closed, leading Officer Jenny to explain that it was closed off because it had rained so much recently that the mud that was now on cycling road couldn't be passed through. So basically the bikes wouldn't work through all the mud. Thankfully though, there was a detour path that was around cycling road that Ash and the gang could pass safely. So Officer Jenny encouraged them to take this route, pointing it out to them. Ash and the gang looked above them to see a bit of cycling road, and they knew that Officer Jenny was right. There was plenty of mud, as well as water, from rainfall. So Ash and the gang decided to take Officer Jenny's advice, which Ash hoped would lead them closer to the Battle Pike. A bit into Ash and the gang's walk, though, Pikachu sensed something and jumped off of Ash's shoulder, running off. And Ash and the gang knew that Pikachu must have sensed something, as they saw its ears had perked up. Regardless, Ash calls out for Pikachu to come back, but Pikachu just ignores Ash and continues to run, desperate to find whatever it was sensing. Ash, seeing that his voice wasn't getting to Pikachu, decided to run after it, with Max, May, and Brock following as well, wondering what Pikachu was sensing. After quite a while, this continuous running was getting tiresome, so Ash begged Pikachu to slow down, but Pikachu continued to run, so Ash and the gang were forced to follow for even longer, until they were stopped in their tracks in the path by a person named Solana and her Plusle, as she spread out her arms wide to prevent Ash and the gang from going past her. Upon seeing the girl's clothing, Max recognized her as a Pokemon Ranger, and then the Plusle, which was on Solana's shoulders, jumped off and charged up an electric attack as a warning to Ash and the gang, as Solana added her own warning, basically demanding that they not go on any farther, and asking them what they were doing in such an area like this in the first place, leaving Ash to explain that his Pikachu had run off, and he was simply going after it in this direction. In response, Solana just tells Ash and the gang to wait right where they were, as she pulls out a phone of some kind off her belt and speaks into it. explaining the Pikachu situation to whoever she was talking to, which happened to be the Pokemon Ranger Union, and she also referred to herself as Solana when she was talking, which confirmed her name to Ash and Gang, indicating that Solana had successfully told the info. She hung up and put her phone back in her pocket, and asked to Ash and the gang even more. So Ash, May, and Max all introduce themselves, with Brock leaping forward and grabbing her hands as he introduces himself and tries to flirt with her as well, with him also adding that he would really like to take her out on a date, because he was sure she was really nice. Max, tired of Brock simping, of course, and was sure to drag Brock away by the ear, as Solana officially introduced herself to them, and also introduced her Plusle, her partner, confirming that she was a Pokemon Ranger. Then, Solana officially permitted Ash and the gang to continue, so long as she could join them in their search for Pikachu, to make sure everything went okay. Speaking of Pikachu, we then see it as it continued to run towards whatever it was sensing. And eventually, Pikachu came across strange, huge vines growing from underneath the ground, and all the way to the top of the cycling path, which was actually one of the other reasons why the cycling path was closed off. It wasn't just because it was flooded, there was also vines that were blocking the road entirely. Pikachu tried his best to navigate through the vines to make it to what it was sensing. And he was actually able to run and jump through these vines, though only because it was so small. There was no way a human could do the same. Along the way, Pikachu came across Team Rocket, who somehow had gotten trapped in the vines. James simply wondered where Pikachu was going, while Jessie and Meowth tried desperately to free themselves, along with Wobbuffet, who forcibly popped out of his Pokeball and ended up getting stuck in the vines as well. Jessie was furious that she couldn't escape, no matter how hard they tried, because she really wanted to capture Pikachu. She was even planning on ambushing it, but now she couldn't do that. Meanwhile, Ash and the gang were being led by Solana in their search for Pikachu through the woods. Max eagerly asked Solana about her experiences as a Pokemon Ranger, and Solana remarked that you had to be an expert to do the job she did, which involved helping people and Pokemon in relation to natural disasters. And Max was proud of himself because he knew this already as well. Basically, Pokemon Rangers helped out Pokemon or trainers after storms. They're basically cops. Ash could barely focus on what Max and Solana were talking about because he was so worried about Pikachu. Just then, Ash and the gang came across the huge cluster of vines that blocked their path, presumably the same one that Pikachu ran into, and immediately they wondered where the fuck these vines could have come from. Ash didn't care where the fuck they came from at the end of the day, though. He just cared that Pikachu could be inside the vines, so he ran straight into the maze of vines to try and get Pikachu back. As he entered the vines, he, May, and Max, and Brock looked on in wonder at the sheer amount of vines, and they knew that soon they wouldn't be able to get through some of them, because they required you to be so small to traverse through. Solana then comes to the conclusion, as she comes in the vines as well, to make sure Ash and the gang were okay, that these vines had to have been the work of Celebi, the time-traveling Pokemon. Ash and the gang were shocked to hear about a time-traveling Pokemon, but Solana elaborates that Celebi likely needed their help, since it usually only sent out vines when it or an area was in danger, so she declared that they should go and save it. Ash and the gang agreed and repeated the words time-traveling Pokemon again and again and again, as they continued to traverse through the vines as best they could. Still in awe at a potential time-traveling Pokemon. Sure enough, Ash and the gang got to the point where they couldn't cross the vines anymore, so they decided to leave the vines and rethink how they saved Pikachu and Celebi. Just then, Ash and the gang see several of the Pokemon that were in the burning forest earlier, and Solana proceeds to pull out a device, which she explained was the standard Pokemon Ranger capture styler, which analyzed all the Pokemon in the area. And Solana receives various bits of data on her screen as a result of scanning the Pokemon, so Max eagerly asked what this data entailed. So Solana explained that the data allowed her to see what Pokemon could be used in certain situations, or how their abilities may be useful for different purposes. And in this case, she had found out that a Linoon could use Slash, which would be beneficial for them. Sure enough, a group of 3 Linoon appear around her, and she uses her device to scan them and confirm that they had Slash. So one of the Linoon would be the Pokemon they needed first. So she presses a button on her capture styler device, and it changes shape and reconfigures itself into a small Beyblade-like thing, and she throws it out. Being a master at doing so, due to being a rank 3 ranger, she explains that the circular version of her device was called the capture disc, and she starts to rotate it in circles around the 3 Linoon, utilizing the baton-like device that was connected to the capture device to control how the capture device spun, and eventually a ring around the Pokemon was formed, glowing white, so the Linoon were apparently captured by the device. Solana then confirms that the Linoon had been captured by her device after looking at the screen, which showed that they were. And she explains that with the device, any Pokemon could be captured or put under her control for a very short period of time, so long as she had a Plusle that could use Helping Hand. And sure enough, she told Plusle that it was time to get to work, and instructed it to use Helping Hand, and this made the Linoon use Slash, which slashed the vines, destroying them and creating a path for Ash again. May was confused with what Solana just did, so Brock and Max explained what the device did to her, and since a path was now cleared, Ash and the gang and Solana continued deeper into the forest looking for Pikachu. and Celebi, although Ash was of course most determined to find Pikachu. Speaking of Pikachu, we then see it continuing to head deeper into the vines, continuing to search for whatever it sensed. When it finally did, when it jumped on a little platform, spotting a heavily fatigued Celebi. It was even knocked out. It was the same Celebi from the beginning of the episode, obviously, and this was the same forest that Celebi had transported itself to. Pikachu could see that Celebi was injured, so it jumped down to it and greeted it, which actually managed to wake up Celebi as it looked up at Pikachu and smiled before losing consciousness again. This made Pikachu worried, obviously, that Celebi could actually be seriously injured, and decided that it would probably be best to try and find someone who could help Celebi, such as maybe Ash in the gang. But suddenly, it started to sense something for someone else as it sniffed the air. Pikachu set off to go find whatever it was sensing now, running back into the maze of vines, but not before assuring Celebi that it would do everything it could to help it. Meanwhile, back with Ash in the gang, the lion was still clearing more and more vines as Ash and the gang and Solana continued to walk through the path. And Solana explained that she had been sent by her union, the Pokemon Ranger Union, to investigate the area after receiving reports about the cycling road having been cut off to all people thanks to a mysterious patch of these incredibly large thorny vines which grew all over one of the main sections of Cycling Road. And she says that she believes Celebi was responsible and that it must be hurt somewhere and using the vines as a way to defend itself, so she wanted to save it. So she volunteered to, and was therefore sent by her union. Brock wondered if Celebi could have been related to Pikachu's sudden running off in some way, and asked Solana if it was possible Pikachu somehow sent Celebi. And Solana said that it was definitely possible for a Pokemon to sense another Pokemon. And May realized that Pikachu must have sent Celebi, since it likely sensed something wrong and wanted to go help. Solana then asked Ash and the gang to keep Celebi a secret, since it was a mythical Pokemon, and it was better that most people didn't know about its power. And Ash and the gang agreed, when suddenly they were startled when they heard the frustrated yells of Jessie, James, and the elf, still trapped in the vines, with Jessie yelling especially loudly because she was being squashed in place by Wobbuffet, since they were trapped in the same fucking vine. Obviously, Ash didn't trust Team Rocket and shouted at them, demanding to know what sort of tricks they had planned this time, and May did the same. James denied that they had any plans, admitting that they did originally plan to try and ambush Ash and the gang in the forest to try and steal Pikachu, but now all they wanted was to be set free, and begged Ash and the gang to help them, promising no tricks and no traps. After some pleading from Team Rocket, Solana remarked that it was her job to help people in Pokemon, so she told Liner, with the help of Puzzle's helping hand, to use Slash to cut the vines, therefore freeing Team Rocket. And they land on the ground and hug each other in the relief of being released after so long. Although they don't hug Wobbuffet, he was left out. The Liner then land on the ground as well, while Solana explained that she was a Pokemon Ranger and would like their help in order to help out with her rescue mission. At the sound of having to do work, Team Rocket immediately got up and pretended to agree before starting to run away. Solana at first ordered them to come back and help, but Ash and the gang said that they would not help since they were just criminals. And once Solana heard this, she actually just demanded Team Rocket to run the fuck away. And Team Rocket did, promising to leave the area, just wanting to get out as soon as possible so as to not risk getting hit by the vines again and captured again. We then cut back to the knocked out, injured Celebi when Pikachu suddenly comes back to it with some Pekka berries. It turns out that what Pikachu had smelled wasn't someone's sense, but instead Pekka berries, but Pikachu thought these would suffice and would be enough to potentially heal Celebi. So it picked up some of the berries and gladly offered them to Celebi. Celebi woke up and took a bite of one and appeared to get a bit better. It took a few more bites and it got even better. Yay! If it just kept eating berries, hopefully it would be back to normal. Meanwhile, back with Ash again, things were going well for them, and they had managed to make it even deeper into the forest, using Linoon to cut away all the vines. Since all the vines were gone, though, Solana knew that the Linoon weren't needed anymore, so she thanked them for all their help and officially set them free from her capture. Although she quickly got back to work on her device, scanning the area to see if there were any more Pokemon that they could use to help them. Utilizing her device, she eventually finds a Diglett and a Dugtrio. She asks them if they'd be willing to help, but before they can respond, she sends out her capture styler in order to capture the Pokemon to help. And she basically just does the exact same process as before, as a white circle eventually surrounds the Diglett and Dugtrio, signifying they were captured. So now, Solana was in control of the Diglett and Dugtrio, and actually told her Puzzle to use Helping Hand on Diglett and Dugtrio. This allows Solana to order Diglett and Dugtrio to use Dig in order to create a tunnel underground for them to travel at a faster rate. This turned out to actually be a very good idea, because Solana had actually miscalculated, and there actually was some more vines, so she was now going to use the hole so that they could go underneath the vines. So the ground shook, and the Diglett were the first ones to go in the hole, obviously, since they were the ones who dug it, and once the dust and smoke cleared from the digging, the hole was revealed, and Ash and the gang jumped down, one by one, underground. Just then, we cut to Pikachu and Celebi again, while Pikachu was making a whole bunch of funny faces to cheer up Celebi, which made Celebi be very entertained and laugh, and Pikachu laughed as well. However, they then heard a sound come from the distance, which was revealed to be the Diglett and Dugtrio as they emerged from the hole, followed by everyone else. Pikachu didn't recognize the ranger, so it thought that the ranger was perhaps dangerous, but Pikachu quickly understood that Solana was friendly since she was with Ash and gang. Ash, immediately upon seeing Pikachu, dashed over to him and was very happy to see him, hugging him tightly. Everyone else focused their attention on Celebi, with Max in disbelief that he was actually seeing one, as was May, as she looked up Celebi's data in her Pokedex to find out more about it. Everyone examined Celebi, amazed to see a mythical, while Solana bent it down to Celebi and explained that she was there to help it, and wanted its trust. Celebi looked unsure, but Pikachu convinced Celebi to trust everyone, assuring it that they were all good people. So, later that night, as the moon shone down on the ground, everyone made a little camp spot on the ground, and Brock laid out a little blanket for Celebi to sleep on, and Celebi soon fell back asleep, still wanting to regain some more of its energy, because it wasn't fully healed. Solana then started to scan Celebi with her device, explaining that it also gave updates on a Pokemon's health, and utilizing the device, she was able to clarify Celebi's condition, saying that after some rest, Celebi should be alright and had no serious injuries. The topic of the conversation then turns to how Celebi, a fucking mythical Pokemon, ended up in this place in the first place, leading Solana to suspect, knowing of Celebi's time travel abilities, that it might have came from the past to the present after some trouble. We then cut to the next morning as the sun started to rise. Ash and Pikachu, in a sleeping bag, were the first ones to wake up, and they immediately saw that Celebi was flying around happily, fully healed up after a long night's sleep. Everyone else woke up and saw this as well, with May remarking that she was very glad Celebi was okay. And suddenly, they all heard Celebi call out and unleash a mysterious light, which overtook all of the vine overgrowth, which signified that Celebi was using its powers, and it proceeded to use these powers on the vine overgrowth to get rid of it all, and return the forest to its normal state, with the energy from the vines having dispersed into the atmosphere to help out more nearby forests. Ash and the King were about to thank it for finally getting rid of the vines, when suddenly a long metal claw reached out from the distance and grabbed Celebi, and Ash and the King saw that this long claw was part of a huge mech with an R on it. And Team Rocket's voice called out from inside the mech as they laughed and bragged about how they caught Celebi before reciting their motto, which Mime Jr. was obviously a part of. That's right, Team Rocket came back after all and had spotted the Celebi and instantly wanted to capture it. Solana angrily shouts at Team Rocket, demanding that they give Celebi back, or at least challenge them to a Pokemon battle so that they could see who got Celebi. But Team Rocket simply laughed, denying Solana's request for a battle or to give Celebi back, saying that they would never give away such an amazing rare Pokemon, since James had learned about Celebi through his guidebook, knowing about how mythical and rare it was, with James adding that Team Rocket planned to give it to their boss as a present. Meowth then pressed some buttons on the control panel inside the mech, and it turned around and sped off in the opposite direction, taking Celebi with it. Solana was determined to not let Team Rocket get away though, and ran off after them. She continued to chase after the mech, even as it disappeared into the distance. Eventually, Solana was able to grab onto a tree branch, and she swung on it, arriving on top of the branch, and she continued to jump from tree to tree to tree to tree, swinging from tree branch to tree branch to tree branch with epic parkour skills until she eventually landed right on top of the mech with her Plusle, while Ash and the gang look on in amazement at Solana's acrobatic skills, just as Solana tells her Plusle to use a Thunderbolt on the mech. Plusle does so, while Solana reassures Celebi that everything would be okay, and the Thunderbolt sent a huge electric shock through the whole mech, shocking Team Rocket in the process, but also severely damaging Team Rocket's mech, stopping it from moving, and also damaging all of its mechanisms. So this allowed Solana to pull off the claw that was holding Celebi and release Celebi from the claw's grasp. Solana knew that the mech was going to explode any second, so herself, Plusle, and Celebi all jumped off of the mech and away from it as it exploded and sent Team Rocket blasting off, with Wobbuffet being blasted off last. Although the mech exploding didn't cause enough force to actually send Team Rocket fully blasting off, so they all crashed back down on the ground right in front of Ash and the gang, Solana, Celebi, and Plusle, who came back to Ash and the gang. And as Team Rocket's destroyed mech burned and sparked in the background, Jessie jumped up from the fall and declared that she wasn't about to let Ash and the gang or Solana get away with their Celebi. James agreed and said that they would just try and take it by force, agreeing to that Pokemon battle after all. Ash and Brock then run up beside Solana and tell her to leave Team Rocket to them, as Jessie sends out her Swiper and James sends out his Cacnea, leaving Brock to send out his Marshtomp and Ash to send out Pikachu. First things first, Cacnea hugged James, prickling him as usual, but after that, Team Rocket were more than prepared for the battle to get Celebi back. So, Pikachu, Marshtomp, Brock, and Ash stared down Jessie, James, Meowth, Wobbuffet, Mime Jr., Swiper, and Cacnea, and the battle began, with Swiper starting off by using Poison Tail, and James starting off by using Pin Missile. The Poison Tail was heading for Marshtomp, though Marshtomp quickly dodged. The Pin Missile was heading for Pikachu, but Pikachu dodged as well. Brock and Ash then told Marshtomp and Pikachu to go for a Mudshot and Thunderbolt respectively, and Pikachu aimed for Cacnea, hitting it hard with Thunderbolt, and Marshtomp got off the Mudshot successfully on Swiper. And Pikachu follows up by knocking out Cacnea with an Iron Tail and sending it flying back into James. And Marshtomp used another Mudshot on Swiper to send it flying back into Jessie. Then Ash tells Pikachu to use Volt Tackle, and Pikachu actually does so successfully, therefore mastering the move, finally. And this paralyzes Team Rocket and sends them into the sky, blasting off once again, and this was for real this time. Although Wobbuffet was still blasted off last. The trouble wasn't over yet though, because the remains of Team Rocket's mech, which were sparking and burning, started to fully start on fire, and the fire started to rage, and the fire was only amplified by the mech having several more mini explosions. Celebi feared that the fire would spread and burn down the entire forest, Just like what had happened before it went back in time. It was implied that Celebi went back in time to stop the forest from burning down, because Celebi started to fly around and cover the fire with its thorny vines, utilizing a green light to do so. These vines did in fact stop the fire, and Ash and the gang and Solana looked on in amazement as Celebi continued to use its powers, this time using a heal bell on the forest to get rid of the vines as well. So essentially, the forest was now completely back to normal. Celebi was happy that it had saved the forest, as Ash and the gang thanked it and said goodbye to it, as Celebi disappeared back to the time from which it came, in one last blinding flash of green light. And right as Celebi disappeared, Ash remembered seeing it back during one of the movies, but that's all I can really say because I haven't summarized the movies yet. While Ash and the gang simply just admired the blinding light as it faded away, amazed with Celebi's abilities, Solana called in to her Ranger Union and reported saying that her mission was successful and Celebi was saved. Max was a bit sad to see Celebi go, as was May, because the two of them wanted to play with Celebi, but Ash comforted Max and May, assuring them that they would see Celebi again. This gave everyone some hope that they would, so they were able to continue on their journey, keeping this hope in mind. So Ash and the gang said goodbye to Solana as they returned to the entrance to Cycling Road, finally able to go on it now that all the vines had dissipated. So they go into the bike rental shop just before Cycling Road and buy some bikes and head down Cycling Road on the path to Fuchsia City, with Ash really excited for his next Battle Frontier battle at the Battle Pike, close to there. He was also hyped knowing that this Cycling Road would actually be a shortcut to Fuchsia City.